Greetings fans, hyperfans and people just love looking for videos of cats on YouTube. I have had an opportunity to review a very cool product this time round. Not actually this little Ravage memory stick, but rather what it contains. Everybody's kind of used to Ravage being inside another bot, but this Ravage actually has a whole robot inside him. Now, a couple of other reviewers have covered the Printformers Scorponok, but they've always been sent a finished product, and that's not how he arrives. So I thought I would give you a file to finish look at what buying a 3D printed Transformer actually entails. And to start with, I guess we better start printing these out. Okay, so that's my first attempt at doing some gang printing of just the purple parts. It's not turned out perfectly, as you can see, but this is not what I'd consider a failed print. Obviously there are bits here that are failed. These upper thigh parts have come loose, but it doesn't look like it was too far away from finishing, so I might be able to save those. Even if I reprint a couple, I'll keep those as spares. And luckily there were a couple of the taller parts, so once I get rid of all this bird's nesting, that's not so good. But anyway, the rest of it's not looking bad at all. All of this is usable. This piece, I actually noticed kind of early, is not usable. As you can see, it's curled up on one side. This is because I'm printing in ABS, and if the bed isn't hot enough, it will just sort of curl up, and this is printed right on the corner. So that's okay. Again, I'll keep this as a spare, but when I do my next set of purple stuff, I'll put that right in the middle, so the bed heating is going to be fine. And that cracking you can hear is as stuff cools down, it's pulling away from the bed. This, is this going to come off yet? Yeah. So this is going to be the chest piece. This is the biggest piece that's, I think, in the entire print. Detailing is really nice. The layers are separating a little bit, so I'm probably going to just pop that into a vise now to stop it from really splitting. I could just put some CA glue in there. But no, I definitely call that one a success. Okay, so I just wanted to say this for anybody who thinks that these are magic machines that you just pop a code in and get a transformer out in a couple of hours. What is it, 1 o'clock in the morning? Prints are now running fine. I'm reprinting some parts that have gone terribly wrong. Not doing too badly with these, but this is all the waste, support materials, misprinted parts that I've got so far, and I haven't even started on the green, so it's not super easy to get good prints out of this, especially when you're using older machines, but let's see how they do. Okay, so slight change in how I'm printing. I had been putting as many parts as possible onto a build plate so I can leave them overnight to print. There's a few pieces that just really do not work like that, so I'm now printing just the leg ratchets and the thighs one at a time. Basically the idea is that I can do it exactly the way they need to be done rather than trying to accommodate a lot of different parts. Hopefully they'll turn out a little bit better. I've moved on to printing the green. The insect legs turned out really well. I printed the lower part of Scorponok's actual legs. Now, you're supposed to take the feet, which I've already assembled, they're quite stiff, and they're sliders that go in here, and you're supposed to sort of test fit that and make sure that they're sliding fine. I test fit them into this side and it just split. It stretched each of these layers out. I'm printing them the way that they're supposed to be printed, but yeah, it just did not like it. I mean, I can feed it in from top and it's just about a squeeze in. So I can show you how they're supposed to look. But all the grey stuff is printed in PLA and the colourful stuff is ABS. And ABS tends to shrink when you print it, so this is obviously a little bit tighter than it's supposed to be. So I am going to take the foot, hang on, and you can see that this block already sticks out quite a lot over here. It's got some quite thick shells on it, so I'm just going to run it through my little desk sander, thin the sides down, keep testing it on the broken one, and as long as that works I just have to reprint one of these and I can fit the feet into the other one and wait for the next round of green printing until I can get everything else together. Take the broken part, drop that in. Nice, nice, very nice, excellent. Back to printing. Since I'm using two different printers, I'm using two different softwares. When I am doing stuff for the Model T, I'm preparing all my files with a open source program called Cura. New Matter actually went out of business, so there isn't official support for my printer anymore, but there's lots of fans that are still putting those files up and updating slightly tweaked settings to get the best out of it. I downloaded the 2019 settings, they're the best I've got at the moment, and that should do me. What I'm doing at the moment is, because I'm printing in the grey PLA, I'm going through the original and working out which stuff I actually want to be in grey. The original design is simply printed in green, purple and a little bit of orange, but that's a little bit too bright for me and I want to make it fit in with the rest of my collection a little bit better. So I am now going through and I'm not doing the bars, but I will take the lower cover, the rings I'm printing in green, but these 4 files. So that's enough to do one arm. And if I drop them all in again, you can see what I'm going to need for 2 arms. And zoom out. Now if I can just move these around, I'm not changing the orientation of any of these because they are designed to be printed a certain way round. I do it on some pieces. Not for the first print, but sometimes I'll print something, it will fall over, print badly, and I'll just see if I can tweak it myself. But I will just put these as close as I possibly can. I'll wait for that to estimate how long it's going to take to print. Layer height is 0.1, shell thickness is 1.2, bottom layer, everything is been printing pretty well. These 8 parts are going to take about 3 hours to print. that's not too bad. I'm going to set these to print and go to bed. I've got it set to a raft with supports everywhere, so that shouldn't come loose on the print bed. What I now need to do is save G-code. I'll just save it as that, that's fine. And now go over to the printer tool itself. Plug it in, upload the file, so that little flashing light there lets me know that the code has uploaded to the printer. But before I hit start, I'm going to take the cover off, get a can of very cheap hairspray and just give it a nice thick layer onto the printing surface. That will dry into a very sticky mess that will just help the PLA stick to the surface. Cover goes back on to keep both the noise down and the dust out. Hit the button and it will start to calibrate and then start to print. Okay, so these are some of the teeniest, tiniest pieces that I printed, which are the elbow hinges. I printed out a few of them because being that tiny, I'm probably likely to break a couple. Now the way that they go together is kind of interesting. I mean, that's the joint that you end up with. There is something else to go on there, these sort of spiky wristbands, and that will probably tighten them up a bit, but how you actually put them together isn't so clear in any of the guys' instructional videos. Right, so the top side, absolutely fine. Bottom side, you've obviously got some support material. I'm just going to trim that off. Even when I've trimmed it off, that's not, on my printer, going to give me enough of a standoff between these little nubs. So I'm just going to take a file, making sure that the nubs are above the file edge. Thin that a little bit. Now, the way these connect are, you have an outer shell and an inner core at the top and the bottom of the arm. They slide over each other pretty tightly. On the upper arm, you are taking this bracket, pushing it into the shell, rocking it down and pushing that back. That should then rock down into there, but that's a bit too tight. So again, just smoothing that, making sure I don't take the other nub off. And then in the lower arm, which is even tighter around, the nub to fit the shoulder in is actually in the base piece. So you have to work it into the wrist, and then this piece closes over the top. Once it's all closed up, you end up with this shape. And this is the bicep swivel. And this goes into the claw. Now, quite honestly, that's good. I understand why they've done that. But I'd rather have had this at the top and the bottom, and then have a mushroom peg there, so that you'd have some wrist articulation. Should have actually been easier to do. Okay, so let's start with getting these claws sorted out. Now they're supposed to be attached through that little pin there onto a flat surface. I want to turn that into a friction peg. So these are parts that I'd actually printed out to go into the arms, but I ended up with too many. They work really well with that peg. So all I need to do is saw through and keep that piece. Doesn't have to be too neat on the inside, none of that's going to show. So now to just sand down that peg and fix that. I just realised even my super glue has got Zarek horns. So here's a good example of what I mean about printing things in the orientation that the designer meant. Okay, so here we have a back panel that was printed the way the designer meant to, which is that way up with supports. It's turned out nice and smooth on the front, nice and smooth on the back, but the edge has actually turned out kind of janky, and that's completely to do with my printer rather than the designer. So I had to put it through and print it just sort of laying flat on the bed, which means that everything else has been fine, but the underside is kind of met with separation between the raft it's printed on and the rest of it being not so great. Actually, I kind of like those lines. If I can find... Yeah, so there's the slightly better one. Let's see if I can actually... So I actually like that pattern, but when I printed the two of them together, obviously those lines are the same way round. So I printed another set, just revolving them by 180 degrees. So on the other side, I can have the stripes going the other way. The other way? It's the same way because it's rotated. Right, I'm going to print these again, flipping them rather than just rotating them, and hopefully I can get this cross-hatching going the other way. Right, back to the printer. Okay, so this is Scorponok as put together as I can really put him at the moment without printing out any more pins or going and getting any more hardware. Now he is a really impressive figure as he is. As you can see, I haven't got the claws on yet. He's not really been finished off. This is literally just sort of popping him together to see how it goes, and I am really impressed. I know that in the video so far I have been really negative. That's because 3D printing is frustrating. I haven't shown any of the stuff that I've been really impressed with as I've got there. The way that the tail fits together, some of the really clever engineering has just been really impressive. Now, I don't class myself as a 3D printing expert. I've got two machines. I do a little bit of design stuff, but usually I'm printing from other people's designs. And I do have to say, this is not the same as a retail figure. I mean, he needs a lot of finishing off, a lot of detail work. It's more like, you know when you do Gundam kits, you put it together and it looks okay, but then you'll see some magazine stuff and it looks amazing. It's that similar level of, this is the kit, and you can do as much work on it as you want. Now, I want to talk about the things that I did that weren't in the instructions. I've actually printed this using two different types of plastic on two different machines. This was designed to be printed in PLA, which I can only do on my little slow machine, but all the grey stuff that I've done, which is the finer detail, stronger stuff, has been in PLA. That's been at 0.1mm height, which means it's quite dense, and all the green and purple stuff I've done in ABS because it's a lot quicker, and I've set the machine to 0.2mm height. So the detail is not as fine. I haven't done any finishing yet, so you can see all the print lines in this, and I am going to go through and use heat gun, nail varnish remover, everything I can to minimize that, but I am also going to paint it. But I just wanted to give you some idea of, you know, what the kit is like when you put it together. I'm going to save talking about things like articulation for when I finish doing my custom work on it, and if I add any additional articulation, I'll talk about that then and there. The other thing that I've done, which was kind of my reason for wanting to do this in the first place, is I haven't printed out the head that the guy designed. This is the Perfect Effect Scorponok head I reviewed absolutely ages ago, and the scale of it is really good. That works very well. I had to do a custom neck joint using a bit of silicone tubing, which a lot of people do to do custom headmasters. Holds it in really well, doesn't interfere with any of the engineering, so I'm happy with that. Let me just talk about how big this figure is, because he is big. I mean, I've been printing this all week, probably only about 30 hours of print time over 2 machines, but a lot of time sort of working out and reprinting pieces. But for that, you'd expect to get a pretty big figure, and he is big. I mean, if I bring in, now that's Classics Starscream, and I'm still taking him as the deluxe class that people have, and he comes up just to the crotch. The legs are really long on this, so I'd say that's about half the height of the figure. But he's apparently been designed to scale with the Power Masters Optimus Prime. Actually, the reason he's a little bit bigger is that he's supposed to scale with this figure when he's got the God Bomber armor on. So, scale-wise, yeah, that's impressive. I mean, it is a big leader class figure. Now, the set is really clever, and it comes with all these pins that you can just push in, and everything holds together really well. I don't trust my machines to do those pins anything like well enough. At the moment, he's just being held together with spare bolts and things pushed into the holes. I'm going to be gluing a lot of this so it's got some extra security. I'll obviously be sanding, smoothing, filling everything. And you may be wondering about the claws. I do have those here, but they take a little bit more of a sort of complexity to put together. I'm not sure if I think these are big enough. I may want to try and print these out maybe like 10% bigger. But there I've spoken about both the positive and negative things about print at home robots. And the positive stuff is you can customize it. You don't have to print everything out. You can remix parts if you need them and you've got the skills to. But the bad side is also kind of your skills. You are limited by how good your machine is, you are limited by what your skill levels are. Now, back to positive things again. If you want to modify a part and you really mess it up, you can just print that one part again. You don't have to print absolutely everything, you don't have to buy a whole new figure. So, you can really have the Scorponok that you want. Okay, enough here. I'm gonna take this out and start doing my finishing work.